The autumn wind carried fallen leaves across the church steps as I stood there in my black suit, staring at my uncle's reddened face. Behind him, my Aunt Patricia clutched her designer handbag, while my cousins Thomas and Victoria whispered and snickered. The church bells tolled, marking 10 a.m., the start of my grandmother's funeral. "Move aside, Marcus," I said calmly, adjusting my tie. "I have every right to be here." "Rights?" Uncle Marcus barked out a laugh. "You lost those rights when you abandoned the family business. When you walked away from everything your grandmother built. Where were you when she needed help running Harrison Enterprises?" I maintained eye contact, keeping my expression neutral. The truth sat heavily in my breast pocket. A letter from Grandma Eleanor, dated just 2 weeks ago. Her last words to me, written in her elegant script: "You were right all along, my boy. The others never understood what building something truly means." "Marcus," I said softly, "this isn't about the business. This is about saying goodbye to Grandma." "Don't you dare call her that." Aunt Patricia stepped forward, her heels clicking on the stone steps. "You lost that privilege when you chose to work as what was it again? A construction worker. Property developer," I corrected, though I knew it wouldn't matter. To them, anything that involved actual physical work was beneath the Harrison name. Victoria, my cousin, tossed her perfectly styled hair. "Same thing, you're still playing with dirt while we manage billions. Grandmother was so disappointed in you." The irony of their words almost made me smile. Almost. But today wasn't the day for revelations. That would come soon enough. "Fine," I said, stepping back. "I'll respect your wishes. Goodbye." As I turned to leave, Uncle Marcus called out, "And don't bother coming to the will reading tomorrow. You've been removed as beneficiary." We made sure of that. I walked to my 10-year-old Honda Civic, another source of family embarrassment, and drove away from St. Michael's Church. In my rear-view mirror, I watched my relatives file into the church, their designer clothes and luxury cars a testament to their idea of success. They had no idea that their entire world was about to change. The drive back to my office took me past several Harrison Enterprises properties, gleaming skyscrapers with the family name prominently displayed. Each one told a story of my grandfather's vision and my grandmother's brilliance in expanding that legacy. But somewhere along the way, the rest of the family had forgotten what it meant to build something real. I pulled into the underground parking of an unmarked building in the industrial district. My office occupied the top floor. Not that anyone in my family knew that. They thought I worked out of a construction trailer somewhere, probably. The truth was far more interesting. Sarah, my executive assistant, met me at the elevator. "Mr. Harrison, I'm sorry about your grandmother," she said, handing me a stack of documents. "The contractors for the Riverside project are waiting in the conference room, and Mr. Phillips called twice about tomorrow." "Thank you, Sarah. Any word from the Hong Kong investors?" "They've agreed to all terms. The papers will be ready for signing next week." I nodded, scanning through the documents as we walked. The Harrison Tower renovation plans looked good. Another project my family had no idea I was involved with. They still thought some mysterious overseas investor had bought their prized building. "Send the contractors in," I said, entering my office. The space was modest compared to the opulent executive suites at Harrison Enterprises. The walls held only 2 frames: my engineering degree and a photo of Grandma Eleanor and me from 15 years ago, standing in front of our first successful renovation project. 3 men in work boots and hard hats entered, led by Mike Sullivan, a veteran contractor I'd worked with during my disgraceful years learning the construction trade. "James," Mike greeted me warmly. "Sorry about your grandmother. She was one of the good ones." "Thanks, Mike, she really was." I cleared my throat. "Let's talk about the waterfront." For the next hour we discussed construction timelines and material costs. These were the conversations my family would never understand. The real work of building something lasting. While they sat in boardrooms making deals, I had spent years learning every aspect of the business from the ground up. My phone buzzed. Another message from Mr. Phillips. "Everything is prepared for tomorrow. 9 a.m. sharp. Your grandmother's instructions were very specific." I sent back a simple thumbs-up emoji and returned to the meeting. The plans before me represented just a small part of what I'd built over the past decade. A separate empire that would soon swallow Harrison Enterprises whole. After the contractors left, I sat alone in my office, remembering the day everything changed. 10 years earlier. You want to do what? Uncle Marcus had roared across the boardroom table. Work as a laborer, have you lost your mind? I was 25 then, fresh out of business school with an engineering degree I'd earned in secret. I want to learn the business from the foundation up, I'd explained. Like grandfather did. Your grandfather, Aunt Patricia had interjected, built this company so we wouldn't have to get our hands dirty anymore. He gave us class, status. He built it through understanding every aspect of construction. I'd countered. How can we run a development company when none of us knows how a building actually goes up? Victoria had laughed. That's what we hire people for, cousin. We're Harrisons. We don't lay bricks. Only Grandma Eleanor had stayed quiet, watching the exchange with thoughtful eyes. Later that day, she'd called me to her office. You remind me of your grandfather, she'd said, pouring tea into delicate cups. He never trusted anyone who wouldn't learn the work from the bottom up. They don't understand, Grandma. The family name won't protect us forever. We need real knowledge, real skills. She'd smiled then, a knowing look in her eyes. Perhaps it's time for a change in the Harrison legacy. Do what you must, James. I'll be watching. I'd walked away from my executive position the next day, much to my family's horror. They'd tried everything, threats, bribes, even attempting to have me declared mentally unfit to manage my trust fund. But Grandma Eleanor had blocked them at every turn, though she never publicly supported me. For 5 years I'd worked construction jobs, learned from contractors, and studied every aspect of modern building development, all while secretly investing my trust fund into a separate company, Phoenix Development Group. Now, 10 years later, Phoenix was larger than Harrison Enterprises, though no one knew I owned it. The mysterious company had been buying up Harrison properties through shell corporations, preparing for the moment when everything would be revealed. A knock at my office door brought me back to the present. Sarah entered with a concerned look. Sir, your Uncle Marcus is in the lobby. He's demanding to see the owner of Phoenix. I checked my watch. 4:30 p.m. Right on schedule, I murmured. Tell security to send him up. It's time he met the mysterious Mr. Phoenix. Sarah's eyes widened. Are you sure? Today of all days. Grandma's last letter was very specific about the timing. I pulled out the envelope from my breast pocket, running my fingers over her elegant handwriting. She wanted everything to happen this way. The elevator doors opened, and Uncle Marcus stormed into my office, his face flushed with rage. He froze mid-step when he saw me sitting behind the desk, his eyes darting between my face and the Phoenix Development Group logo on the wall behind me. What is this? He stammered, his usual commanding presence crumbling. You're not, please. Uncle Marcus, have a seat. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. I believe you wanted to meet Mr. Phoenix. He remained standing, his hands clenching into fists. This is impossible. Phoenix Development is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You're just a construction worker. I finished for him. Funny how appearances can be deceiving. I opened my laptop and turned it to face him. On the screen was a live feed of Harrison Enterprises' stock price, which had been steadily declining over the past year due to my family's mismanagement. You might want to sit down for this part, I suggested. When he finally did, I continued. Phoenix owns 47% of Harrison Enterprises shares. We've been buying them through various subsidiaries, while you and the board were too busy arranging golf tournaments to notice. The color drained from his face. You're lying. We would have known, like you knew about the Harrison Tower sale. I pulled out the contract, or the Riverside Development Project, or perhaps the Hong Kong merger you've been desperately trying to secure. His eyes widened with each example. That was all you. Every single deal that saved Harrison Enterprises from bankruptcy over the past 3 years. Yes, that was Phoenix. That was me. Uncle Marcus slumped in his chair, his carefully maintained facade cracking. Your grandmother, did she know? I smiled, thinking of my weekly secret meetings with Grandma Eleanor. She knew everything. In fact, she was my silent partner. What? Why do you think she kept blocking your attempts to seize control of my trust fund? Or why she insisted on maintaining majority voting rights until her death? I leaned forward. She saw what you and the others were doing to her husband's legacy. The corruption, the shortcuts, the illegal dealings. His head snapped up. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can. I pressed a button on my intercom. Sarah, please send in Mr. Phillips. The family lawyer entered, carrying a thick folder. Uncle Marcus's face went even paler. Mr. Phillips has been gathering evidence for years, I explained. Every falsified inspection report, every bribed official, every embezzled fund. Grandma knew about all of it. Then why didn't she stop us? Marcus whispered. Because she had a better plan. I opened the folder and pushed several documents across the desk. She wanted you to learn the same lesson I did, about what it really means to build something. Mr. Phillips cleared his throat. Perhaps we should discuss tomorrow's will reading. Uncle Marcus straightened in his chair, a hint of his old arrogance returning. The will is already settled. We made sure James was removed. I'm afraid not, Mr. Phillips interrupted. Mrs. Harrison made some significant changes 2 weeks ago. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline dotted with Harrison buildings. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., everything changes, Uncle Marcus. The question is, will you and the others learn from it, or will you fight it? He stood up so quickly, his chair toppled backward. You think you can just walk in and take everything? The family will never accept this. The family won't have a choice. I turned back to face him. But I'm offering you something better than what you had planned for me. I'm offering you a chance to learn, to earn back your place, the right way. What does that mean? It means starting from the bottom, learning the business like I did, proving you deserve to be part of this company's future. He laughed bitterly. You expect me to become a common laborer? At my age? No, Uncle Marcus. I expect you to become worthy of the Harrison name. After he left, Mr. Phillips remained behind, reviewing documents for tomorrow's reading. Your grandmother would be proud, he said quietly. Though I must admit, when she first told me about your plan 10 years ago, I thought you were both crazy. I picked up the photo of Grandma and me from my desk. She taught me that real power isn't about having your name on a building. It's about knowing how to build it in the first place. The others won't take this well, he warned. I know. I sat back down, pulling out Grandma's final letter. But she prepared me for that too. The letter had arrived the day before she died. My dearest James, by the time you read this, everything will be in place. Your uncle and the others will try to keep you from my funeral. Let them. Their final act of cruelty will be their last. You've proven yourself in ways they never could, building something real while they played at being business leaders. Tomorrow Mr. Phillips will read my will. The changes I've made will shock them, but the evidence you've gathered will leave them no choice but to accept it. You now control not just Phoenix, but all of Harrison Enterprises. Use this power wisely, my boy. Show them the same mercy I'm showing them by giving them a chance to learn, to grow, to understand what your grandfather and I always knew, that true success is built from the ground up, with honest work and real understanding. Make me proud one last time. All my love, Grandma Eleanor. I folded the letter carefully and put it away. Tomorrow would change everything, but tonight I had work to do. The Riverside project needed my attention, and I had a construction site to visit. Sarah, I called out. Get me my hard hat. I'm heading to the site. As I drove to the construction site in my Honda Civic, I passed my cousin Victoria's Ferrari, parked outside an exclusive restaurant. She was probably celebrating what she thought would be her imminent promotion to CEO. Tomorrow would certainly be interesting. The construction site was quiet at this hour, with just the night crew working under floodlights. Mike Sullivan was waiting for me. Thought you might show up tonight, he said, handing me a hard hat. Bad day to be alone with your thoughts. I put on the hat and safety vest. Actually, it's a perfect day to remember where it all started. We walked the site together, checking progress, talking to the crew, making real decisions about real work. This was what my family had forgotten, the actual business of building things. Your grandmother used to do this too, you know, Mike said as we inspected a foundation pour. Back in the early days before your uncle and the others took over, she'd come out at night, check the work herself. I nodded, remembering the stories she'd told me. She never trusted anyone who wouldn't get their hands dirty. Tomorrow's the big day, huh? Yeah, I checked the concrete consistency myself, just as I'd learned to do years ago. Tomorrow everything changes. And you're sure about giving them a second chance? Mike asked, after everything they've done. I stood up, brushing off my hands. Grandma Eleanor believed in redemption. She gave me a chance to prove myself. They deserve the same opportunity. And if they refuse, then they'll lose everything. I looked up at the skeletal structure of what would soon be another Phoenix building. But at least they'll have had a choice. As I drove home later that night, I thought about tomorrow's will reading. The documents were ironclad, the evidence overwhelming. My family would have no choice but to accept the new reality. The question was, would they learn from it? I parked my Civic outside my modest apartment building. Another choice that had baffled my family. Why live here when I could afford a penthouse? But that was exactly what they had never understood. Success wasn't about showing off wealth. It was about building something meaningful. Tomorrow would test that philosophy. Tomorrow would change everything. Mr. Phillips had texted one final time. 9 a.m. Everything is ready. Your grandmother's last surprise is in place. I smiled, knowing that even now, Grandma Eleanor had one last lesson to teach her family. The Harrison family law firm's conference room was silent except for the gentle hum of air conditioning. It was 8:55 a.m., and I sat alone at the massive oak table watching my family members file in one by one. Their expressions ranged from smug contempt to outright hostility. Uncle Marcus entered last, looking considerably less confident than yesterday. His wife, Aunt Patricia, whispered something in his ear, but he just shook his head and sat down heavily. Mr. Phillips arrived precisely at 9 a.m., carrying a leather briefcase that contained the documents that would reshape the Harrison empire. My cousins Thomas and Victoria exchanged knowing smiles, clearly expecting their carefully orchestrated plan to unfold. Before we begin, Mr. Phillips said, adjusting his glasses, Mrs. Eleanor Harrison recorded a video message to be played before the reading of her will. This was news to everyone, including me. The large screen at the end of the conference room flickered to life, and there was Grandma Eleanor sitting in her study, looking directly into the camera. My dear family, she began, her voice strong despite her illness. If you're watching this, I've passed on. But before Mr. Phillips reads my will, I want to tell you a story, the real story of Harrison Enterprises. The room grew still. Even the usual whispers ceased. 45 years ago, your grandfather and I built this company with our bare hands. Not with inherited wealth, not with corporate takeovers, but with real work. We laid foundations, drew plans, and solved problems on site. We knew every aspect of our business because we learned it from the ground up. She paused, taking a sip of water. Over the years, I've watched with growing sadness as this legacy was corrupted. You've turned our company into nothing more than a money machine, cutting corners, bribing officials, and forgetting the fundamental truth. Real success is built, not bought. Victoria shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Thomas loosened his tie. But one person understood. Grandma's eyes seemed to find me through the screen. One person was willing to give up everything to learn our business the right way. James didn't just talk about honoring his grandfather's legacy, he lived it. Uncle Marcus's face reddened. Aunt Patricia gripped her designer handbag so tightly her knuckles turned white. What you're about to learn will shock you. You'll be angry. You'll feel betrayed. But remember this, everything that's about to happen is the consequence of your own choices. The screen went dark. Mr. Phillips stood up and opened his briefcase. The last will and testament of Eleanor Harrison, he began, but Victoria interrupted. We already know what it says. We made sure of it. She shot me a venomous look. Mr. Phillips continued as if she hadn't spoken. I, Eleanor Harrison, being of sound mind, hereby revoke all previous wills and testaments. He pulled out a stack of documents. First, I must inform you that Harrison Enterprises is no longer a privately held family company. Through a series of legitimate transactions over the past 5 years, majority ownership has been transferred to Phoenix Development Group. The room erupted in chaos. Thomas jumped to his feet, shouting about lawyers. Victoria turned pale. Uncle Marcus just sat there, already knowing what was coming. Phillips raised his voice over the commotion. Phoenix Development Group is solely owned by James Harrison, making him the majority shareholder and CEO of both companies, effective immediately. Aunt Patricia fainted. Thomas was on his phone, presumably calling his lawyer. Victoria was crying. "This is impossible," Thomas shouted. "We controlled all the shares." I finally spoke up. "No, you only thought you did. While you were busy spending money, I was busy earning it. Every project you rejected as beneath us became a Phoenix project. Every deal you were too proud to consider, I took. And Grandma helped me do it." "She would never." Victoria spat. Mr. Phillips pulled out another document. Mrs. Harrison's personal shares, representing 30% of the company, were transferred to Phoenix 3 years ago. The remaining shares were purchased legally through various subsidiaries. "We'll fight this," Thomas declared. "We'll take this to court." "I wouldn't," I said quietly, pushing a thick folder across the table. "This contains evidence of every illegal deal, every bribed inspector, every embezzled fund over the past decade. Fight me, and this goes to the SEC." The room fell silent again. "However," I continued, "Grandma Eleanor believed in second chances. So here's my offer. Each of you can earn back your position in the company, but you'll have to do it my way. From the ground up." "What does that mean?" Uncle Marcus asked, speaking for the first time. "It means you start at the bottom. Learn the business properly. Prove you deserve to be part of this company's future." Victoria laughed hysterically. "You expect us to become construction workers?" "I expect you to become worthy of the Harrison name," I replied, echoing my words to Uncle Marcus yesterday. "You have 24 hours to decide. Choose to learn, and you'll have a place in the new Harrison Enterprises. Refuse and you'll still receive a generous severance package, but that's all. And if we go public with this family scandal," Thomas threatened. I smiled. "Go ahead. I'm sure the press would love to hear how the mighty Harrison family lost their company to the cousin they mocked for actually working for a living." Mr. Phillips cleared his throat. "There's one final item. Mrs. Harrison left individual letters for each of you. She asked that you read them in private." He distributed the envelopes. One by one, my family members left the conference room, clutching their letters like lifelines. Uncle Marcus was the last to leave. At the door he turned back. "You planned this for 10 years." "No," I replied. "Grandma planned it. I just proved her right." After everyone left, I opened my own letter. "Dearest James, by now everything is done. The family has learned the truth, and you've offered them the chance I once offered you. Some will take it, some won't. That's their choice to make. Remember what I taught you. True power isn't in controlling others, but in helping them grow. Be firm but fair. Be strong but merciful. Most importantly, never forget what it means to build something real. I'm so proud of you, my boy. Love always. Grandma Eleanor." I folded the letter and put it in my pocket. There was work to be done, buildings to raise, and maybe, just maybe, a family to rebuild. Mr. Phillips gathered his papers. "Shall I prepare the paperwork for those who accept your offer?" "Yes," I said, standing up. "But first I need to visit a construction site. There's a foundation being poured today, and I want to check it myself, just like Grandma would have done." 1 year later, the morning sun glinted off the newly completed Harrison Phoenix Tower as I pulled into the executive parking garage. Not in my old Honda Civic. I'd finally retired it to make Grandma's point about humility, but in a sensible hybrid SUV. Some lessons about staying grounded never get old. Sarah met me at the elevator with my hard hat and the day's schedule. "The family quarterly review is in an hour," she reminded me. "You might be surprised today." The past year had been interesting, to say the least. After the will reading, the family had split exactly as Grandma Eleanor predicted. Victoria had taken her severance package and moved to Europe, unable to accept the new reality. Thomas had tried to fight it legally for 2 months before the evidence folder changed his mind. He took his settlement and started a small business. Ironically, learning the value of hard work the hard way. But Uncle Marcus and Aunt Patricia had surprised everyone. Walking into the conference room, I found them already there. Uncle Marcus wore a construction site supervisor's uniform, his once manicured hands now used from real work. Aunt Patricia sat beside him in work boots and casual clothes, her designer bags long forgotten. The Riverside Project's foundation work is ahead of schedule, Uncle Marcus reported, spreading out the plans. The crew's morale has improved since we implemented those safety improvements you suggested. I nodded, remembering how he'd struggled through his first months as a basic laborer. But he'd stuck with it, slowly earning respect through actual work rather than family connection. The community outreach program is showing results, Aunt Patricia added. She'd found her calling in project management, particularly in working with local communities affected by our developments. The neighborhood association actually applauded at yesterday's meeting. Grandma would have loved that, I said, watching them beam with genuine pride. She always said building communities was more important than building fortunes. Mr. Phillips entered with his briefcase, carrying the quarterly assessments. Shall we begin the review? The next hour was spent evaluating Uncle Marcus and Aunt Patricia's progress in their roles. They'd earned every promotion over the past year, working their way up through merit, rather than entitlement. Based on these results, I announced, I think it's time for the next step. Uncle Marcus, you've earned the position of Construction Division Head. Aunt Patricia, you'll be leading our new Community Development Department. They exchanged shocked looks. But that would make us, Uncle Marcus began. Board members, yes, I smiled. You've earned it. The real way. Aunt Patricia wiped away tears. Your grandmother, she was right about everything, wasn't she? She knew what would happen, I confirmed. She left me one final letter, to be opened today. I pulled out the envelope Mr. Phillips had given me this morning. Inside was a single page in Grandma Eleanor's handwriting. My dearest James, if you're reading this, a year has passed since the change. Some family members will have chosen pride over growth, let them go. But others will have surprised you, just as you once surprised me. True family isn't about blood or names. It's about shared values, shared work, and shared purpose. Those who learned this lesson are your real family now. Lead them well. The Harrison legacy isn't in our buildings. It's in our understanding that anything worth having is worth working for. Build something meaningful together. All my love, Grandma Eleanor. I passed the letter to Uncle Marcus and Aunt Patricia. As they read, I walked to the window overlooking the city. Our buildings stood proud against the skyline, but now they represented something more than just wealth or power. There's one more thing, I said, turning back to them. The old Harrison mansion. I'm turning it into a training center. A place where anyone, regardless of background, can learn construction and development from the ground up. The Eleanor Harrison Institute, Mr. Phillips announced, revealing the plans. Uncle Marcus stood up, his eyes bright. She would have loved that. She knew about it, I said. It was her idea, her final project. Later that evening, I visited the mansion as workers began the renovation. In Grandma's study, everything remained untouched. Her photos still lined the walls, images of her and grandfather at construction sites, working alongside their crews, building something real. I picked up my favorite photo, Grandma Eleanor in a hard hat, covered in dust, showing a young me how to read blueprints. On the back she'd written, "Remember, James, true success isn't in having your name on the building, but in knowing how to build it right." The sun set over the city she'd helped build, casting long shadows through the study windows. Somewhere out there, Thomas and Victoria were living different lives, learning different lessons. But here in this house that would soon help others learn what I'd learned, her legacy lived on, just as she'd planned all along.